Alrighty, I'm going to be doing a quick little tutorial on how to do Ped stuff. Putting all the stuff that you need in the description when it comes to actually opening the files. Adjusting the YMT, importing them into 3ds Max, and optimizing the textures. So when you launch up your server, it's not throwing issues at you. On top of that, little performance boost if you're just planning on using it. OpenIV is how you'll actually sit there and find the files, and once you find them, that'll allow you to import, export, and everything else with them. The YMT Editor, if you want to add props or pieces of clothing to the Ped, YMT Editor is going to be a huge help for that. It simplifies, instead of you having to sit there and copy, paste, and fiddle with it for many hours. You could literally just toss it in there, and it gives you a list of options for what you want. Paint.net, you can swap this out for Photoshop. I just choose to use Paint.net because it's free and easy to use. And then last, you'll need 3ds Max with GIMS Evo. Having these 4 programs are really what's going to matter. Anything else, it's kind of an external assistant, and it's not too important. On top of that, I'll be showing you how to get these Ped files. This is kind of the file structure I go with. I basically put all of the files in one folder while I'm doing tests, and then I have a folder where I sit there and take my exports, and I'll dump them into this folder. So with that being said, all the links to all of the programs, OpenIV, YMT Editor, 3ds Max, and Paint.net will be in the description on top of GIMS Evo. I'll upload my version of GIMS Evo that I know that works and doesn't have many issues. So when it comes to actually getting these Ped files, it's fairly simple. For this one, I'm going to be using an example of one that doesn't work with the skeleton structure. And to kind of explain what I mean by not having a skeleton structure. When I import this into 3ds Max, it's going to give me fake bones. And with these fake bones, it makes it a lot harder because then you may have to sit there and weight paint and other stuff like that to actually utilize this. And it is really not an enjoyable thing. It makes life hell. So if I was to sit there and take let's say I was to sit there and actually grab the Ped file, right? And import the upper. With this upper and importing it, it's going to give me fake bones. These are what happens when GIMS Evo does not receive enough information on where the bone should be, but it knows that bone should be there. That's when it kind of gets irritated and just tosses fake bones at you and says, okay, you can fix this really easily. I'll be showing that later, but I'll be showing the proper way of exporting all these files so you don't get the issues of fake bones and stuff like that. So the first thing that you want to do, pop open OpenIV. If you don't have this set up, it's fairly simple. It literally walks you through when you're installing it. The only thing that you'll need to find out is where your GTA 5 is actually installed. When you open up OpenIV, let's say you're downloading a Ped from GTA 5 mods or something like that, and it's in your downloads folder, you'll just want to navigate to the folder in which it's located. For me, it's going to be within my actual server files. Alright, so with me, it's actually within my server files. It's going to be different for pretty much everybody, but the way that, our server files are set up, we have it put in folders and stuff like that. So the Ped that I'm going to be looking at is one ghost. The naming convention or anything like that, when you're exporting, isn't super important, just because you're looking for these files. The one thing that you're going to want to make sure you're doing is you're on edit mode. This will allow you to right click in the open space and you can import files. And if you right click on a file, you're able to export to ODD for YDDs and OTDs for YTDs. So the file that we're gonna want to get is this head right here. You want to export a head, an upper, and a lower if you want the entire ped to show up in 3ds Max. If you're just doing something like a vest, most of the time you can do an upper, but because I know this ped and just out of safety, to make sure I don't run into a huge problem with having to figure out, you know, how much time extra am I gonna have to put on this ped and actually weight paint, I would say your safest bet is to export a head, a lower, and an upper. Some peds have a different setup, and they actually are all clustered into one file like this. So if I was to sit there and open up this file with an OpenIV, or this folder, we would see if I went into this YDD right here, it's going to have everything of his ped all slammed into one. So if I check all, boom, you can see his entire ped is in this. So in this case, all I would want to really do is just export this file. But right now, we'll be exporting the upper, the lower, and a head file. And that's just for the safety of, you know, okay, well, if that upper doesn't have the skeleton file, the head should. So you can right click on just each file that you want to export to ODD. And then you can go to your desktop, make a new folder, call it whatever you really please. We'll call it Ghost Ped Export. When you open it, you can organize it pretty good, or you could do the way that I do it. So if I was exporting a lower, I could go lower, open that, export, go from a lower to an upper, export the upper, make a new folder, call it upper, export, and then grab the head, export, call it head. So now you'll have head, lower, and upper. So I just export the head to head. And with that, we're pretty much good. The only other thing that you would want to grab out of this is the YTDs. So you actually have textures in them. When you're looking through, right, we'll have head A through C. You can grab any one of these three. Because this head, and I'll explain this later more in depth once we get to the YMT editing, that this head just looks for all three of these head files. So we'll go ahead and take head diff 00A, export this, and since we're exporting the YTD to the head, we just want to go inside our head folder that we exported to, select and export the YTD there. And then on top of that, for the lower, since we exported lower 001, and if you want to make sure that you're exporting the right one, you'll want to go to here, and you see we have one ghost lower 00, and then we'll have one ghost lower 00. This diff I believe just identifies that it's a YTD. I may be entirely wrong on that, but you're going to want to export the YTD to either this folder or the folder within. Having the YTD with this when you import it into 3ds Max, instead of it showing up pink and bright because it doesn't have a texture file. A good example would be, I don't think I have the texture file for the head in here. So when I import this, it'll show up like this without the texture file. But if I do have the texture file, like I do with this upper, I import this. As soon as it's imported, boom, it automatically looks like the shirt and has the textures and everything, which will help if you're putting something on top of this shirt. So now that I got that explained, wipe that out. So div 00, we're going to go back to our desktop, ghost ped export, lower. I think we're exporting right. Yeah, lower. Desktop, ghost ped export, lower. Go into this folder and select folder. And then the last thing that we need is the upper. So yet again, we can check here. We say upper 000. So then we'll take this upper diff, export that. Go, if you want to take a long way, go to your desktop, your ped export, and your upper, and then select your folder. So now, if we go in here, and we go to our desktop, we go to ghost ped export, and we go to head, we should be able to click this, select the folder, and when we import it, we should have a texture on this. And boom. Let me go ahead and select all child nodes and delete. Alrighty, so with our ped that we just exported, all nice, neat, and organized, we got our head, we got our lower, and our upper. If we import all three of these, we should have a full ped in 3ds Max. And the good part about this is, if you want to sit there and put pants on and stuff like that, or you have something that overhangs from the torso to the lower body, it's all right there for you to actually see in size and scale. But if we're just putting a vest on, we just want to get our vest that we want to actually edit. Most you can just download and actually utilize. Just pull out of the zip and toss in there. For right now, I will just grab the vest files and pop them in here. And then we'll call this vest. So it's in a folder with everything that's needed. This has the YDD and the YTD already exported. So with this, if I was to import it, it already have the textures. So next, for this ped, when you go to import the ODD to GIMS Evo, we see it shows up, but we have all these fake bones. These fake bones are really annoying, and a really easy way to get rid of it is, we're going to wipe this out real quick. You want to go into your file export, right? If you pop open your head and you go inside of the head file, into the head folder, inside of the folder that we made previously, we'll see this .scale. What we want to do is copy this file, and then we want to go to the upper portion that we're trying to sit there and place it. We'll go inside of this folder, not the diff, but the upper. The diff is what's going to show actually on the textures inside of 3ds Max and in-game. But if we go in this folder, we'll see that it doesn't have a skeleton file. And that's when 3ds Max doesn't really register it. And that's when we get the fake bones, and it'll make your life a lot harder if you have to sit there and actually 3D paint or heat paint So what we can do is we can take that file that we had earlier, we can right click and we can paste it. And what we're going to want to do is grab this folder right above. You can right click, rename. We're going to copy this text. We're going to go down here. We're going to right click, rename. And then we're going to paste over this text, add a space, and type full. What this will do is it'll tell this upper portion, use this skeleton file. So now if I sit there and I import the upper, select the folder so I have all the textures with it, we have a skeleton file. With the skeleton file, you have the pelvis and stuff like that, which is the lower portion. You also have the spine, which is pretty much all of the, it goes all the way down the back, all the way up. So if we were attaching a vest or something, we would want to go to roughly about the neck area to attach it. But continuing on from this, now that we have the scale file and everything working on this upper, which is amazing, we're going to go ahead and drag over this video, or this folder, and we're going to go back to GhostPed. And we can import the lower and stuff like that, so we have a full picture of what the ped's going to look like with the vest on. And then we can import the head, so we can see how that neck and head and the vest that we're trying to put on will look. We'll see if we're, scrunching the neck up or basically impaling it, so we can make sure this looks good overall. The next thing that we can sit there and put on is the part that we actually want to import. For this one, right? It's not going to have bones yet again. So what can we do if it doesn't have bones and it's MP free mode? We could just take this, look up MP _M free mode 01. We're going to pop it into OpenIV, and then we're going to look up that name plus plus .yft. Now when you do this, it'll search for a little bit, and then it should find one. When it finds it, if you open up this file, it should just look like a plane. Don't expect to see a skeleton or anything here. It should literally just be a plane. So what we'll want to do is export this skeleton to open formats.scale. Go to our vest folder, so we can go to our desktop, our ped export, our vest. We're going to go to not the diff folder, but the other folder without diff in it. Go inside, and then we can paste this right here. After we've pasted it in that folder, if we go back to our desktop, our GhostPed export, our vest, and then we go inside the regular folder, not the diff, we'll see MP _free mode scale, right? What we'll want to do is go back, and then we'll copy this entire name. So we'll right click, rename, copy, go into this, rename this scale file, paste it, and type full right after. Now, if we import this, re-import, we're going to go to vest, ODD, select folder, and this should read the bones. Might need to be up a folder. That's what it was. All right. So when you export this skeleton file, you literally just want to put it in the folder with the ODD and OTD, so it can read that. So now if we look at this, there's a skeleton structure with just rvest. So if I was to close down the vest, right click, select child nodes, and hide this, our vest disappears and it has its own skeleton structure. Our upper has its own skeleton structure. Our head has its own skeleton structure. The only thing that I don't think does is our lower. And if we wanted to add stuff to the lower and give it the skeleton structure, it'd be the same way of doing it for the upper. And to show that one more time, go to the head inside of this folder. We'll right click and copy the .scale file. We'll go back to our desktop, go to pet export, our lower, go inside this folder, the lower, the not diff one, and then we'll paste. And after pasting, we want to go up to this folder right here. This folder will give us the name of what we need to name this to without the .odr. We'll rename it. We'll copy this text, go to this file right here. We're going to rename it. We'll paste, we'll add a space, and we'll type full in all caps. So now if I was to there, delete this lower portion and add the lower in there, select the folder. Now the lower has an entire skeleton. And this will give us our thighs. On top of that, it should give us our, this should reach all the way up to our neck. Alrighty. So next, the vest, right? We want to sit there and take the low and medium, and we're good for right now just to wipe those out, right? We don't really care too much about the lows and mediums. But what we can do with this, right, is we can start off by turning off any sort of transparency by clicking on user defined, going to materials, turn off transparency, and then go to a flat color so we don't have the shininess and brightness of where it'll apply, because we don't really care about that right now. So we'll click flat color, and that just gives us this basically like grayscale area. And then what we're going to want to do is click on our vest. Give me 1 second. Alrighty. So the one thing that you're going to want to do once you have everything imported like we do, is you're going to sit there and click on the piece of clothing that you have that you're wanting to attach to the pet. You'll want to go over to the little wrench up here. You'll click it, and under utilities, you should see the more button. Once you click the more button, you want to scroll down until you see skin utilities. With the skin utilities, you just click it, press OK. I just disabled it for me to re-enable it. You'll want to click on the item that you want to sit there and extract the skin data. So you'll press this button right here and extract skin data to mesh. And that'll simply just drag this, make this thing out here. We'll be using this later, so we don't really care about that right now, so we can hide that. Next, it's pretty simple. What we want to do is take our task high. We'll go into our upper, go to upper, scale root, and then all we'll want to do is go into this. We'll go down to editable mesh. It should pop up with this error. Press yes. And then under this, you'll see attach. You want to sit there and take this and just attach. Match ID to materials. Say OK. And then give it a second. And then with that, alrighty. So once you select the task 007, you're going to want to go over to the utilities. You'll press more. You'll scroll down and you should see skin utilities. You're going to want to press OK. And then it should pop up this on the side. And with this, you just want to click task 007 high. Press extract skin data to mesh. And then boom, you should have this file right here. This will pop up. We're just going to hide this for right now, but that'll be useful to us in just a minute. Next, you're going to want to import this task 007 high. And we should just be able to select the upper high, go over to this, click on editable mesh, say yes, attach, select this, say match materials to IDs, say OK. And then what that will do is take our vest from here and toss it right into here. So if I was to hide this file right now, it'll hide both. Next, we'll want to reselect editable mesh, say yes, click on the polygon, and then what we can do is go material ID, we'll do select ID 1, and that'll select the entire t-shirt, and then we can just right click and should say delete. Scroll up here and then press delete, and that'll delete the entire t-shirt, leaving us just with our vest that we want to add. Then after with this vest, what we'll want to do is go over here, import skin data from mesh, and then we'll just select the high and the skin data at the same time, import skin data, and then we'll want to match by name. We'll see that we're missing a skull neck 1. So what we'll want to do is go ahead and press cancel. Go over to this one right here. You're going to want to go down into the skull root. Want to go down into this, press yes, and then go into skin. With the skin, we should be able to go into the spine, keep on going down, and we'll see the skull neck. We'll want to add it to we'll go into this, we'll go skin, we'll add, we'll go from here into the MP_3 mode, task, skull root, spine, and select the neck, and select. And now if we go back over to this, and we click on this, and we hold Control and click on the skin data, press import, match by name. Now every single thing will be matched up. Press OK. And now the last thing that we'll need to do is to fix the textures. So right now we'll hide this and everything else. So we'll select the vest. And then what we can do is go to skin or editable mesh. Select the polygon. And then on top of that, we're going to want to drag GIMS Evo over here. We'll do material editor. We'll take the upper diff 00 and we'll change this to ID3. Press enter. And we'll take task diff 007A and we'll change this to ID1. And then when we look at the vest, it's going to be black. So what we're going to want to do is go to editable mesh, yes, select poly, and we're going to want to set the ID to 1 on this entire object. So select the ID 1, and that should show up properly. There we go. And then with that, having the textures and everything put onto the vest, now what we can do is go up to here. We're going to want to export. We'll go back to here. And then at this point, we'll make our new folder. We're going to call it 3ds exports. We'll make a new folder inside of this folder, and we'll call it export 1. Select folder. And then we don't want to export everything. We're just going to want to export the upper. We'll make sure everything else is unchecked. We'll press continue. We'll give it a second. And then, bam, it's exported. The next thing that we're going to want to do is we'll right click on this, select child nodes, and we'll delete it. And then we're going to want to import the upper again, because now we have a backup of a file completely set up just in case we mess this one up. Next, we'll want to import the upper again. And all we're really going to be doing with this one is adjusting the size and scale of the vest. So we'll want to select on the upper scale root, make sure we're actually selecting the one that has our vest. So if we select this one, we know this is our vest now. So what we're going to want to do is go here, editable mesh, yes, modifier list. You're going to want to scroll down till you see the FFD box. This is just going to give us a nice box, and it'll allow us to actually edit the size and scale of where everything is. So on the front of this, you're going to want to, I believe, you should just be able to click on this. I don't know why it's being a pain in the ass. So go into it and press control points, and then at this point you're able to actually select it. All you have to do is move them back and forward. You don't want to stretch it too much because then you'll get issues with texturing and it won't look as good. So we'll just out that a little bit, and we can go to the front, slide ourselves over until it's pretty much right in front of us. Click this, and then we'll drag out enough that we stop seeing clipping. And then we'll select the top, and we can drag that up until we see it over the shoulders. We'll go to the side view to make sure we're not stretching too far, but not stretching too little. And then we'll go to the back, because we know it's going to have clipping on the back. take this out a little bit. And then we'll go to the back view, look at the sides. At this point, if you want to add default shading, it may help a little bit. We can see right here, we're still clipping. So we can go to the back. We can select just this row and extrude that a little bit. We can look at the front and this side. See that this side needs a little bit more love. We'll select this, extrude it just a little bit. And now with this, it matches his body shape and it won't be clipping as bad. And then if you, once we import this into the game and we see more clipping and stuff like that, we can always import this file back in and adjust it further. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open this back up. And just for our mental sanity, we'll select the t-shirt that we have. And we'll right click and we'll delete that. And that'll just save us the headache of having to see which one's which. Next we'll export. We'll go to Ped export, 3ds export, and we'll make a new one. And we'll call it export 2. You're going to want to select this folder. It's going to ask you which one you want to export again. And then you'll select the upper, continue, and it's done. Next, what we want to do is go inside this folder, and with it being called an upper, it's going to treat it like an upper, right? But we want it treated like a vest. So what we can do is we can go back into our files and look for another vest, right? If you look through here, you'll see uppers, how these are jackets and stuff like that. Stuff like tasks are what's actually going to be a vest. That's a belt, but here's a vest. So we're going to want to take the naming convention of this, and we'll sit there and we can even right click this file, rename it, copy the text that's in there, and we can go back to our ped over here. All you have to do, right click, rename. Actually, do this. We'll go File, Open Folder. We'll go to our desktop, our Ped export. We'll go to our 3ds export. We'll open up our export 2. And then that'll give us this folder. And what we can do is we can right click, import open formats. We'll just highlight over those two folders and files. Press OK. And now we'll have the file in here. So then what we can do is we can right click, rename. We can paste that name over it, and we'll change it from an 002 to an 003. And then since this vest looks like another vest we have, we can sit there and grab the YTD that we used. And all vests should come with their own YTDs. So if we go into our desktop, our Ghost Ped export, our vest, we should have an OTD. So now if we import, we go to our desktop, our Ped export, our vest. Normally the longer name is going to be our OTD. So we want to OK. And we'll see we have MP_M free mode. We'll just right click, rename. What we could do for reference is grab another vest. So we'll scroll up. Scroll up and down until we see task. We have a task right here. So we'll right click, we'll rename. We'll copy this. Take this to our export folder. We'll right click, we'll rename. paste it, and we'll change this from 002 to 003. So now that we've created this vest, we have a YTD, and this is our YTD. Let's say this file is fairly big, but I want to do a small adjustment to it. All I have to do is open up the YTD by double clicking. I can export this file to my desktop or to the PEDX, our PED export. We can make a new file calling pictures. Inside this, we can export. So now this is where stuff like paint.net will come in. So we'll open up this, and we have our DDS. So we'll open up paint.net. We can move it over to the side, drag this over, and just open it. And then we can change the text on it. So we can just highlight over all of this. Take our paint bucket, and hopefully get this to paint over sometime soon. Alrighty. Now that we have it painted over, we should have a black box. We can type for testing. We can change this to white. Up the font to maybe 20. We'll go 24. This is just a really stupid simple test. We'll make this a new layer so we can actually adjust it without it getting irritated. For testing, and then we'll click this, and then we should be able to yeah, so we're going to want to rotate this. This is where stuff like Photoshop will be a lot better than this, but we'll take this, we'll drag this on here, enter, and we can just save. We'll go pictures, we'll save it as a PNG. Save, okay, flatten, and then we're good with this for right now. Next we can import, and we'll import the PNG because that's our updated file. We'll see for testing, and we can save. So now we're going to want to take our YTD and our OTD, and we're going to want to take these two files that we can grab in our 3S export 2. You'll see your YDD and your OTD, or your YTD and your YDD in the same place. We'll go to our server files, or however else you want to utilize these. ghost files. Take our YDD and our YTD. We'll move this. We can make a copy, paste it into this Peds files. And then this is where the YMT editor is going to come in. We'll open up the YMT editor. We'll open a YMT. We'll go all the way through our server files back up to the head that we want to add a file to. We'll select that YMT. And since we're adding a task, we want to go to Task, Add New Drawable. And then if we look at the rest that just have one texture, they're all just going to be one. And then after we add that new texture, or that new drawable, all we want to do is go File, Save, click the YMT that you were just adjusting, press Save, and you want to replace it. Okay. Now if we launch up our test server, alrighty, our test server is fully up. We're just going to want to load into our test server. We'll select the ped that we want to adjust. And for my example, we're going to be using, go to a place in which you can change your ped's clothing, whether you have a menu or just a character modification place. We'll want to go to the place in which we have a vest. And here's the one vest that we had before. If we go to the next, we'll see for testing. We'll see that it's bulging a bit more in some places, but overall it fits the ped pretty well. And we'll save our ped. And now if we walk around, it's actually on our ped. It's fully attached. If the ped adjusts arms or anything like that, it'll move with it. It's pretty much fully on your ped. You can sit there and contort the body in multiple ways, and it'll sit there and stay on it. You can kind of look around, look for any clipping issues that may happen. You can see some clipping happening with the arms. So if we wanted to, we can go back to 3ds Max, shrink this size in with the FFD box, and play around with it a bit more, and just re-import it to our test server, and just see how it looks. And from then on, it's pretty much just fine-tuning. Alrighty. And that's pretty much it.